The morning sun poured through the kitchen windows of the Pearson home like warm honey, painting golden streaks across the granite countertops. It was one of those perfect September mornings in Austin, Texas, the kind where the brutal summer heat had finally backed off, and you could actually step outside without feeling like you'd walked into an oven. Aaron Pearson stood at the kitchen island, methodically assembling 2 lunch boxes, turkey and cheese for Annie, PB&J with the crusts cut off for Kylie, apple slices in both. He moved with the precision of a man who'd done this 1,000 times, which he had. "Daddy, can I have the purple thermos today?" He looked up to see his 6-year-old daughter Annette, Annie to everyone who knew her, standing in the doorway. She was already dressed for school in her favorite yellow sundress with white daisies, her dark hair pulled into 2 slightly lopsided pigtails that he'd attempted earlier. "The purple one's in the dishwasher, sweetheart. How about the blue one?" Annie's face scrunched up in that way kids do when the world delivers a profound injustice. "But Sarah has a purple thermos. We're supposed to match today." "Tell you what," Aaron crouched down to her eye level. "You take the blue one today, and I promise I'll have the purple one ready for tomorrow. Deal." She considered this with the gravity of a Supreme Court justice weighing a constitutional matter. "Deal." From the living room came the sound of Kylie's giggles, followed by Tilly's voice doing some kind of monster impression. Aaron smiled. His wife had a gift for turning ordinary moments into adventures. It was one of the things he'd fallen in love with 8 years ago, back when they were both grad students at UT Austin, him finishing his physics degree, her wrapping up her MBA. Tilly appeared in the kitchen doorway, 2-year-old Kylie balanced on her hip. God, she was beautiful. Even at 7:30 in the morning with her dark hair still damp from the shower and minimal makeup, Matilda Pearson looked like she belonged on a magazine cover. She had that effortless elegance that some women just naturally possessed. High cheekbones, warm brown eyes, a smile that could light up a room. "Someone wants to say good morning to Daddy," Tilly said, bouncing Kylie. "Da-da." Kylie reached her chubby arms toward Aaron and he scooped her up, pressing a kiss to her soft cheek. "Good morning, Princess number 2. "I'm Princess number 1, Annie announced from the table where she'd already started on her Cheerios. "You absolutely are." Tilly ruffled Annie's hair as she passed, heading for the coffee maker. Did you remember to put the extra juice box in Annie's lunch? It's her turn to bring snack for the class." "Already done." He shifted Kylie to his other hip. "And I packed the goldfish crackers too. What would I do without you?" "Probably forget the goldfish crackers." She laughed, that bright, infectious laugh that had first caught his attention across a crowded campus coffee shop all those years ago. "Probably." Aaron watched her pour coffee into her travel mug, her movements quick and efficient. Tonight was the big night. The company gala at the Driscoll Hotel downtown. Tilly was being recognized for landing 3 major accounts this quarter, a feat that had put her on the fast track for a VP position at her firm. He was so damn proud of her. "You nervous about tonight?" he asked. "A little." She took a sip of coffee. "Mostly just ready for it to be over. All the schmoozing exhausts me," says the woman who could charm the pants off anyone in a room. "That's different, that's work." Annie looked up from her cereal. "Mommy, what does charm the pants off mean?" Aaron and Tilly exchanged a look, that silent parental communication that develops after years of fielding awkward questions. "It means being very friendly and making people like you," Tilly said smoothly. "Oh." Annie stirred her Cheerios thoughtfully. "Like when I shared my crayons with Marcus and now he's my best friend?" "Exactly like that." Crisis averted. Aaron set Kylie down in her high chair and handed her a sippy cup. The kitchen filled with the comfortable sounds of a family morning, the clink of spoons against bowls, the gurgle of the coffee maker, the radio playing softly in the background. This was his favorite part of the day. The chaos, sure, but also the togetherness. The knowledge that these 4 walls contained everything that mattered to him. "Mommy," Annie's voice cut through his thoughts. "Do rules always have to be followed?" Tilly paused mid-sip. "What do you mean, baby?" "Like Ms. Patterson says we always have to raise our hands before we talk. But what if there's an emergency? What if there's a fire?" Aaron leaned against the counter. "That's a good question, Annie. What do you think?" The 6-year-old's brow furrowed. "I think maybe some rules have exceptions." Well, Aaron said carefully, some rules exist because they help keep everyone safe and happy, like gravity. Gravity always pulls things down, it doesn't take days off. Rules like that are called absolutes, they're always true no matter what. Tilly made a small sound, half laugh, half disagreement. Actually, gravity isn't quite that simple. Here we go, Aaron said, but he was smiling. I'm just saying. Tilly set down her mug. Einstein showed that gravity can be bent by massive objects, and in space, astronauts float around like gravity doesn't exist at all. So even something that seems absolute can have exceptions. That's not really. I'm just pointing out that things aren't always as black and white as they seem. She winked at Annie. Sometimes there's gray area. Aaron shook his head, but there was no real frustration in it. This was an old debate between them, one that had played out dozens of times over the years, usually over wine after the kids were in bed. Aaron believed in absolutes, right and wrong, true and false. Tilly believed in context, in nuance, in the infinite shades between extremes. It was a philosophical difference, nothing more. Well, Annie announced, hopping down from her chair, I think both things can be true. Maybe rules are mostly always, but sometimes not always. Look at that, Tilly said, gathering their daughter into a hug. A philosopher in the making. Aaron watched them, his wife and his daughter, laughing together in the morning light, and felt a wave of contentment wash over him. This was the life he'd always wanted. The house in the Tarrytown neighborhood with the big backyard, the kids, the career he enjoyed even if data analysis wasn't exactly glamorous. The woman he loved. Everything was exactly as it should be. The next 20 minutes passed in the usual morning blur. Annie's shoes went missing, found under the couch. Kylie had a minor meltdown over wanting more banana, resolved with strategic distraction. Aaron double-checked his laptop bag while Tilly fixed Annie's pigtails, making them slightly more symmetrical than his attempt. At the front door, the family gathered for the daily goodbye ritual. Have a good day at school, sweetheart. Aaron knelt to hug Annie. Learn lots of things. I will, Daddy. Tilly was already buckling Kylie into her car seat in the driveway. The plan was simple. Tilly would drop Kylie at her parents' house. They were babysitting both girls overnight so Aaron and Tilly could enjoy the gala without worrying about bedtimes, then head to the office for a few hours before the event. Hey! Tilly appeared at his side, keys in hand. I'll see you at the hotel at 6, right? Wouldn't miss it. She kissed him, a soft, familiar press of lips that still made his heart skip after all these years. I love you. Love you too. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Go knock 'em dead tonight. You've earned this. Her smile was radiant. I plan to. He stood on the porch and watched her back down the driveway, Annie waving frantically from the backseat. The September sun warmed his face. A mockingbird sang somewhere in the neighbor's oak tree. Life was good. Life was perfect. Aaron had no way of knowing that in less than 12 hours, that perfect life would shatter into a million jagged pieces. But right now, in this moment, he simply waved back at his daughter and headed inside to finish getting ready for work. The Driscoll Hotel rose from the corner of 6th and Brazos like a castle from another era. Built in 1886, it was all Romanesque arches and limestone grandeur, the kind of place where cattle barons and oil magnates had once clinked glasses and closed deals worth millions. Tonight it would host the annual gala for Morrison and Associates, one of Austin's premier corporate consulting firms. Aaron parked Tilly's BMW in the underground garage at 5:47 p.m., 13 minutes early because that's who he was. He checked his reflection in the rearview mirror. The charcoal suit still fit well, thank God. The silver tie Tilly had picked out for him matched the subtle pattern in her cocktail dress. They'd planned that. He grabbed the parking ticket from the machine and tucked it into his jacket pocket. The ballroom was already humming with activity when he entered. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over round tables draped in white linen. A string quartet played something classical in the corner. Waiters in black vests circulated with trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Aaron estimated maybe 200 people, all dressed to impress. He spotted Tilly almost immediately. She was holding court near the bar, surrounded by a cluster of colleagues. Her emerald green cocktail dress hugged her curves in all the right places, and her dark hair was swept up in an elegant twist. She was gesturing animatedly, telling some story that had her audience captivated. Even from across the room, he could hear the burst of laughter that followed her punchline. That's my wife, he thought with a surge of pride. The woman who could work a room like nobody else. He made his way over, snagging a glass of champagne from a passing waiter. There he is, Tilly beamed when she saw him. Everyone, this is my husband, Aaron. You know Ted and Melissa. Ted was a wiry guy in his early 30s with a receding hairline and an eager smile. He was on Tilly's sales team, a decent performer if the stories she told were accurate. Melissa was a brunette in a red dress, someone from HR if Aaron remembered correctly. Good to see you again, man. Ted shook his hand with a little too much enthusiasm. Tilly tells us you're some kind of genius with numbers. Data analyst, Aaron said, less glamorous than it sounds. Don't let him fool you, Tilly said, slipping her arm through his. He's brilliant, built a predictive model last year that saved his company $3 million. Till, what? It's true. A tall man in an expensive Navy suit approached their group. Frank Morrison, CEO, the man's handshake was firm, his smile practiced but genuine enough. Aaron, glad you could make it. We're lucky to have your wife on our team. I'm the lucky one, Aaron said. Smooth, Frank laughed. Tilly, Jim's looking for you, something about your presentation for the McKinley account. Duty calls. Tilly squeezed Aaron's arm. Mingle, I'll find you in a few. She disappeared into the crowd, leaving Aaron with Ted, Melissa, and his champagne. So, Aaron, Ted leaned in with the air of someone about to share valuable intel. You following the Cowboys this season? Aaron wasn't particularly interested in football, but he made polite conversation anyway. That's what these events required. Small talk about sports, comments about the weather, compliments on the venue, the social lubricant that kept the corporate machinery running smoothly. After 20 minutes of nodding along to Ted's breakdown of the Cowboys' offensive line issues, Aaron excused himself to find the restroom. He passed through the lobby, admiring the historic architecture. The Driscoll was one of those places that made you feel underdressed no matter what you were wearing. Marble floors, ornate columns, portraits of stern-looking men from Texas history lining the walls. When he returned to the ballroom, the energy had shifted. People were taking their seats. A podium had been set up at the front, and someone was testing the microphone. Aaron found their table, table 7, near the front, and settled into his seat. Tilly appeared a moment later, slightly flushed. Everything okay? Jim's just being Jim. She rolled her eyes affectionately. Wanted me to triple-check the revenue projections for Monday's meeting, like I haven't already checked them 100 times. He's thorough. He's paranoid, but I love him anyway. Jim Patterson, no relation to Annie's teacher, was Morrison and Associates CFO, a stocky man with wire-rimmed glasses and a perpetual expression of mild concern. He was brilliant with numbers, less brilliant with people, but he and Tilly had always gotten along. The ceremony began. Frank took the stage, delivering the usual corporate platitudes about teamwork and excellence and embracing challenges. Aaron only half listened, his attention focused on Tilly beside him. The way her eyes sparkled in the chandelier light. The subtle scent of her perfume, something floral with hints of vanilla. And now, Frank's voice cut through his thoughts, I'd like to recognize someone who has truly exemplified what it means to exceed expectations. This quarter, she didn't just meet her targets, she obliterated them. 3 major accounts, totaling over $4 million in new revenue. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in congratulating Tilly Pearson. The room erupted in applause. Tilly rose, smoothing her dress, and made her way to the stage. Aaron clapped until his palms stung. This was her moment, the culmination of months of late nights and early mornings and stressful calls. She accepted a crystal trophy and leaned into the microphone. I'm truly grateful for this recognition, but I have to say, this wasn't a solo effort. My team made this possible. Ted, Melissa, Randy? She nodded toward their table. And of course, my incredibly supportive husband, Aaron, who never complains when I'm working on a Saturday or takes conference calls during dinner. Baby, I couldn't do this without you. Their eyes met across the room. Aaron felt his heart swell. After the ceremony, there was more mingling, more champagne. Aaron found himself chatting with various colleagues of Tilly's, playing the role of proud husband with ease. At one point, he noticed Tilly laughing with a tall, broad-shouldered man in a dark suit, Randy something. He was on her team, too. Aaron vaguely remembered him from the company picnic last summer. Good-looking guy, easy smile. The kind of effortless charm that Aaron had never quite mastered. They seemed comfortable together, familiar. The way colleagues often were when they spent long hours working toward shared goals. Aaron felt nothing but trust. Why wouldn't he? Tilly was his wife, the mother of his children. The woman who'd stood beside him through grad school poverty and job rejections and the terrifying first months of parenthood. She would never, could never, Mr. Pearson? He turned. A waiter was at his elbow. Yes. The valet asked me to inform you that your parking ticket is required for vehicle retrieval. Apparently there was an issue with the machine earlier, and they're asking all guests to verify their tickets are still valid. Aaron patted his pocket. Empty. He must have transferred the ticket to his other jacket, the one he'd been wearing when he arrived before changing into his suit in the car. Right, thanks. I'll go check on that. He caught Tilly's eye across the room and mimed that he was stepping out. She nodded, giving him a quick smile before returning to her conversation. The lobby was quieter now, most guests either in the ballroom or at the bar. Aaron's footsteps echoed on the marble as he headed for the elevator that would take him to the parking garage. The doors opened with a soft chime. He stepped inside and pressed B1. As the elevator descended, Aaron had no idea that his life as he knew it was ending. That the next few minutes would set in motion a chain of events that would destroy his marriage, shatter his trust, and force him to rebuild himself from the wreckage. The doors closed. The elevator sank, and Aaron Pearson descended quite literally into his own personal hell. The parking garage was all concrete and fluorescent lights, a stark contrast to the Driscoll's old-world elegance. Aaron's footsteps echoed as he walked toward the BMW, his mind already calculating, grab the ticket, get back upstairs, maybe catch the tail end of the open bar. He found the ticket in his jacket pocket, right where he'd left it. One thing handled. He was heading back toward the elevator when he heard voices. Male voices coming from somewhere near the stairwell. Low, conspiratorial, the kind of tone that made you instinctively slow down. Didn't bring her husband. The words drifted toward him. Think Randy's gonna tap her again tonight? Aaron stopped. His brain processed the sentence in fragments. Didn't bring her husband, tap her. Again, that voice. He knew that voice. Ted, the wiry guy with the receding hairline who'd spent 20 minutes telling him about the Cowboys. Man, you're terrible. A different voice, one Aaron didn't recognize, laughing. What? It's not like it's a secret. The whole team knows they've been going at it on business trips. Randy bragged about Chicago just last month. Aaron couldn't move. His feet had turned to concrete, his lungs to stone. The parking ticket crumpled in his fist, but he didn't feel it. Tap her again. The words echoed in his skull like a ricocheting bullet. Think the husband suspects anything? Please, that guy's clueless. You see his face when she was up there with the award, like a puppy dog. He has no idea. More laughter. The sound of a door opening and closing, footsteps fading. Aaron stood alone in the parking garage. The world had tilted. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, harsh and unforgiving. Somewhere a car alarm beeped twice. Normal sounds, everyday sounds, but nothing was normal anymore. Nothing would ever be normal again. He doesn't remember walking back to the elevator. Doesn't remember the ride up or the walk through the lobby. His body moved on autopilot while his mind screamed in a frequency only he could hear. It's not true. It can't be true. But even as he thought it, puzzle pieces were clicking into place. The business trips that seemed to stretch longer than necessary. The late nights at the office. The way Tilly sometimes seemed distracted, her phone face down on the counter. No, he found the ballroom. The string quartet was playing something soft and romantic. Couples were dancing. The champagne was still flowing. And there by the bar stood Tilly, still in that emerald green dress, still laughing, still beautiful. She was talking to Randy. Randy with his tall frame and easy smile. Randy who stood just a little too close. Randy who touched her elbow as he made some joke that made her throw her head back in amusement. Randy who had apparently been sleeping with Aaron's wife. The room went red. Later, Aaron wouldn't remember crossing the ballroom. Wouldn't remember the faces that turned toward him, the conversations that paused. All he knew was that one moment he was standing by the entrance, and the next he was right there, inserting himself into that cozy little circle. Tilly's smile was warm, unsuspecting. I was just telling Randy about. I'm leaving. Her smile faltered. What, the party's not over? Are you feeling okay? Aaron looked at her, really looked at her. at the face he'd loved for nearly a decade. The face that had looked at him this morning and said, "I love you," while hiding this. "I'm leaving Tilly." His voice was ice, controlled, the kind of calm that comes from being so far beyond normal emotion that there's nowhere else to go. "I wouldn't want to get in the way of Randy tapping you tonight." He paused, let the words sink in. "Again." The effect was immediate. Randy choked on his drink. Champagne dribbled down his chin. His face went from confusion to horror in the span of a heartbeat. Melissa, who'd been standing nearby with a woman in a green silk dress, actually gasped. The sound carried in the suddenly silent space around them, but Aaron only had eyes for Tilly. He watched as the color drained from her face. Watched her expression cycle through surprise, confusion, then devastating recognition as she understood exactly what he just said. What he knew. "Oh no." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Aaron, air, please." He was already turning away. "Wait." She grabbed his arm. "Let me explain. It didn't, air, please." He removed her hand. Gently, because despite everything, some part of him was still the man who loved this woman. But firmly, because he couldn't stand to be touched by her. Not now, maybe not ever again. "Don't." "Aaron." He walked away, through the ballroom, past the staring faces, past Ted, who had the decency to look terrified when Aaron's gaze swept over him. Past the string quartet still playing their romantic melody like the world hadn't just ended. Through the lobby, past the marble columns and the stern portraits, out the front door and into the September night. The air hit him like a slap. Warm, humid. Austin in the early fall, when summer hadn't quite let go. He sucked in breath after breath, trying to get oxygen to his brain, trying to think. Get to the car, just get to the car, the parking garage, the BMW. He had the keys, they were in his pocket next to the crumpled parking ticket. Tilly had driven herself in her own car, something about needing to arrive early. He drove. He didn't know where he was going, didn't care, just needed to move to put distance between himself and that ballroom, that hotel, that life. The Austin skyline glittered in his rearview mirror. The Congress Avenue Bridge, Lady Bird Lake, all the familiar landmarks of the city he'd called home for over a decade, they looked different now. Foreign. Like he'd slipped into some parallel universe where everything was almost right but fundamentally wrong. His phone buzzed in his pocket, then again, and again. He ignored it. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled over on South Congress, near a closed vintage clothing store, and stared at the screen through blurred vision. 12 missed calls from Tilly. 8 text messages. "Air, please come home, I can explain, it's not what you think, please just talk to me, I love you so much, please." Aaron, he threw the phone onto the passenger seat. The problem was, it was exactly what he thought. Ted's words echoed in his skull. The whole team knows. Randy bragged about Chicago, tap her again. Not a misunderstanding, not a one-time mistake. Something ongoing, something known, something that had made him look like a fool in front of people who smiled at his face and laughed behind his back. He started driving again. He couldn't go home. Not to that house with the yellow shutters and the swing set in the backyard. The house where they'd brought both babies home from the hospital. The house where he'd thought they were building a life together. A lie. It was all a lie. 20 minutes later, he pulled into the parking lot of a residence in off I-35. It was the kind of place business travelers stayed, anonymous, functional, forgettable, perfect. He paid cash for one night. Used a fake name without even thinking about why. Some survival instinct, maybe, the need to disappear even temporarily. The room was on the 3rd floor, beige walls, brown carpet. A queen bed with a geometric-patterned comforter that had probably been ugly in 1995 and had only gotten worse with age. Aaron locked the door behind him. He made it exactly 3 steps before his legs gave out. The carpet was rough against Aaron's knees. He knelt there in that anonymous hotel room and felt his entire body begin to shake. It started in his hands, a fine tremor that spread up his arms, across his shoulders, down into his chest where it wrapped around his heart and squeezed. Don't fall apart. Not here, not now. But his body wasn't listening to his brain anymore. The first sob caught him off guard, a raw, ugly sound that erupted from somewhere deep in his gut. He clapped a hand over his mouth, muffling it as if someone might hear, as if it mattered. Like any wounded animal, he thought wildly, "I just want to get someplace safe." But there was no safe place, not anymore. The one person who had always been his safe place, his partner, his best friend, his home, was the very source of this agony. He crawled toward the bed, grabbed a pillow, pressed it against his face, and screamed. The sound tore out of him, muffled by the polyester filling, but still primal, still devastating. He screamed until his throat was raw and his lungs burned, and there was nothing left but the hollow ache of emptiness. Then he cried. He cried for the life he thought he had, for the marriage he thought was solid, for the future that had evaporated in the space of a single overheard conversation. He cried for Annie and Kylie, who would never understand why their world was about to change. He cried for himself, for the fool he'd been, the blind, trusting fool who'd never once suspected that the woman he loved was giving herself to someone else. Images flashed through his mind. Their wedding day at the Botanical Gardens, Tilly in white lace, her eyes shining with what he'd believed was love. The moment Annie was born, that tiny wailing bundle placed in his arms while Tilly, exhausted and beautiful, reached for both of them. Last Christmas, the four of them by the tree, wrapping paper everywhere, Kylie more interested in the boxes than the gifts. Happy memories. Lies. All of it a beautiful, elaborate lie. The tears eventually stopped, not because the pain lessened, it didn't, but because his body simply ran out of resources. He lay on the hotel bed, staring at the popcorn ceiling, feeling hollowed out, empty. His phone was still buzzing. He'd carried it in without realizing. Now he looked at the screen again, 23 missed calls, countless texts. He couldn't bring himself to read them. What could she possibly say? What words could undo what she'd done? The clock on the nightstand read 11:47 p.m. 3 hours since his life ended. The analytical part of his brain, the part that made him good at his job, began to stir despite the grief. It wanted data, information, the complete picture. How long had this been going on? How many times? Did anyone else know? Did his parents know? And the question that kept circling back, the one that cut deepest, how could she? How could Tilly, his Tilly, the mother of his children, the woman who'd promised to love, honor, and forsake all others, how could she climb into bed with another man and then come home and kiss him goodnight like nothing had happened? He didn't understand. He couldn't understand, because to Aaron, marriage was sacred. It was the one absolute he believed in without reservation. Two people making a promise before God and family and the state of Texas to be faithful to each other until death. Not until it got boring, not until someone more exciting came along, until death. He'd never even been tempted, not once. In nearly a decade of marriage, through the chaos of new parenthood and the stresses of dual careers, he'd never looked at another woman and wanted her. Because he had Tilly. And Tilly was enough. Tilly was everything. Apparently he wasn't everything to her. That thought triggered a fresh wave of pain, but the tears didn't come this time. He was empty. His stomach growled. A mundane sound, absurdly inappropriate given the circumstances. He realized he'd barely eaten since breakfast. A few hors d'oeuvres at the gala, nothing substantial. Food. He should eat. His body needed fuel even if his mind screamed that nothing mattered anymore. He pulled himself upright, splashed water on his face in the bathroom. The mirror showed a stranger, eyes red and puffy, face pale, 5 o'clock shadow darkening his jaw. He looked like a man who'd been through hell, because he had. There was a Whataburger 2 blocks from the hotel. He walked there, the night air cool against his skin. Austin's nightlife hummed around him, people leaving bars, couples holding hands, someone playing guitar on a corner. Normal life. Going on without him. The restaurant was nearly empty at this hour. He ordered a #1 combo, paid without really seeing the cashier, and sat in a plastic booth to wait. When the food came, he ate mechanically. The burger might as well have been cardboard, the fries sawdust, but he forced it down anyway because not eating wouldn't change anything and he needed his strength. For what? He didn't know yet. Revenge, he wasn't that kind of person. Confrontation, eventually, but not like this. Not when he could barely form coherent thoughts. Answers? Yes, he needed answers. Needed to understand how the woman he'd built a life with could so completely betray everything they were supposed to stand for. He finished the meal and walked back to the hotel. The room was just as depressing as he'd left it. He lay on the bed again, fully clothed, and stared at the ceiling. His mind began to assemble questions, the data analyst in him emerging from the wreckage. Question 1, how many times? Ted had said again, implying multiple encounters. Question 2, how many men? Was Randy the only one or just the most recent? Question 3, did she use protection? The thought made his stomach lurch. Had she exposed him to diseases? Had she risked bringing something home to their bed? Question 4, why? What had driven her to this? Had he done something wrong, neglected her somehow? Or was this simply who she was, someone capable of compartmentalizing betrayal as easily as she compartmentalized business deals? That thought stopped him cold. The philosophical debates, the arguments about absolutes and exceptions, the breakfast conversation just this morning when Tilly had insisted that even gravity had loopholes. Had she been telling him all along? Had those playful disagreements been her way of signaling that she didn't believe in the same moral frameworks he did? Had he been too blind to see it? His phone buzzed again. This time he looked. "Tilly, please come home so we can talk. I love you." The words blurred on the screen. He turned off the phone. Somewhere around 3 a.m., exhaustion finally won. Not peaceful sleep. Nothing about this night was peaceful, but the body's desperate need to shut down, to escape, even temporarily. Aaron's last conscious thought was of Annie's face that morning, asking about rules and exceptions. What would he tell her when the time came? How do you explain to a 6-year-old that sometimes the people you love the most are capable of hurting you in ways you never imagined? He didn't have an answer. He wasn't sure he ever would. Sleep claimed him, and for a few merciful hours the pain receded. When he woke, the first pale light of dawn was creeping through the cheap hotel curtains. His body ached from sleeping in his suit. His mouth tasted like grief and Whataburger, but his mind was clearer. He would go home, not to reconcile, he wasn't sure that was possible, but to face Tilly, to ask his questions and demand answers. He owed himself that much. He owed their marriage, whatever remained of it, that much. Aaron Pearson stood, straightened his rumpled suit, and began the longest drive of his life. The words hung in the air like smoke from a detonated bomb. "I wouldn't want to get in the way of Randy tapping you tonight." Again. Tilly Pearson stood frozen in the middle of the Driscoll Hotel ballroom, her emerald cocktail dress suddenly feeling like a straitjacket. Her champagne glass trembled in her hand. The string quartet was still playing, something by Vivaldi, she thought numbly, but the music seemed to come from underwater. Aaron was walking away, her husband, her heir. Walking away from her with a spine made of steel and eyes made of ice. "Air!" Her voice came out as a whisper. Then louder, "Aaron, wait!" He didn't turn around, didn't slow down, just pushed through the ballroom doors and vanished into the lobby like a man escaping a burning building. The silence around her was deafening. She could feel them, all of them. Ted with his stupid, receding hairline frozen mid-sip. Melissa in her red dress, mouth hanging open. Randy, oh God, Randy, standing right beside her, his face the color of old milk. And somewhere in the crowd, a woman's voice, sharp and venomous. "Did he just say what I think he said?" Trish, Randy's wife. Tilly didn't wait to see the fallout. Her legs moved before her brain caught up, carrying her toward the exit, her heels clicking against the marble floor in a frantic rhythm. She shoved past a waiter, nearly knocking over his tray of canapes. "Excuse me, sorry, excuse me." The lobby, the front door, the September night. She burst onto the sidewalk just in time to see taillights disappearing around the corner. Her BMW. Aaron had taken her car. No, 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 no. Her purse. Where was her purse? Still inside. Her phone, her wallet, everything, back in that ballroom full of people who now knew her darkest secret. Tilly pressed her hands to her face and screamed into her palms. A couple walking by gave her a wide berth, probably thinking she was drunk or crazy or both. Get it together, think. She marched back inside on shaking legs. The lobby felt like a gauntlet. Every face seemed to turn toward her, the concierge, the bellhop, a random businessman checking his phone. Did they know? Could they tell just by looking at her that she was a woman whose life had just imploded? Back in the ballroom, she spotted her clutch on table 7. Frank Morrison intercepted her before she could reach it. "Tilly," his voice was low, controlled, the voice of a CEO managing a crisis. "I think perhaps you should go home." "I'm trying to. Is there anything we can?" "No," she grabbed her purse. "I'm sorry, Frank, I'm so sorry about all of this." His expression was unreadable. "We'll talk Monday, when HR would probably have a field day. When her career would join her marriage in the wreckage. She didn't care about that right now. She only cared about Aaron. Outside again, she fumbled with her phone. Her fingers felt thick and clumsy as she opened the Lyft app. 7 minutes. Her driver, Carlos, was 7 minutes away. 7 minutes might as well have been 7 hours. She texted Aaron while she waited. Please come home nothing. I can explain nothing. It's not what you think." Even as she typed it, she knew how hollow it sounded. It was exactly what he thought. She just hadn't thought it mattered. That was the crazy part. That was the part he would never understand. "Please just talk to me. I love you so much. Please." Aaron, the messages showed as delivered, not read. He'd probably turned off his phone or thrown it out the window or both. Carlos arrived in a silver Camry. Tilly slid into the backseat, gave her address, and immediately burst into tears. "You okay, miss?" Carlos glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "Fine." She wiped her face with the back of her hand, smearing mascara across her cheeks. "Just drive, please." The ride from downtown Austin to Tarrytown took 23 minutes. Tilly knew because she watched every single one of them tick by on her phone screen, hoping and praying that Aaron would respond. He didn't. The city lights blurred past the window, the illuminated state capitol dome, the shops on South Congress, the familiar turn onto their street. She'd made this drive 1,000 times. Coming home from work, coming home from dinners with friends, coming home to her family. Would it still be her home after tonight? Think, Tilly, think. In the quiet backseat, she forced herself to breathe, forced herself to examine the situation the way she would examine a difficult client negotiation. What did Aaron know? That she'd slept with Randy? That it had happened more than once? Ted's crude comment had made that clear. What else? Had Ted mentioned the Chicago trip specifically? The Houston conference? The one time in Randy's car in the Morrison and Associates parking garage after the Christmas party? God, when she listed it out like that, it sounded so much worse. But it wasn't worse. That was the thing. Each of those encounters had been nothing, a physical release, a moment of excitement in an otherwise exhausting business trip. She'd never once, not for a single second, stopped loving Aaron. Sexual fidelity seemed irrelevant to my marriage. That's what she'd told herself back when she was justifying the first time with Randy. They'd been in Chicago, both exhausted after a 14-hour negotiation with a difficult client. They'd had too much wine at the hotel bar. One thing led to another. And afterward, getting on the plane home, Tilly had felt fine, normal, eager to see Aaron and the girls. Her love for her family hadn't diminished one bit. The encounter with Randy had existed in a completely separate compartment of her brain, a locked box that had nothing to do with her real life. She genuinely believed it didn't matter. Because to Tilly, love wasn't about bodies. Love was about hearts. About the person you built a life with, raised children with, grew old with. Aaron was that person. He would always be that person. Randy was just Randy, a warm body, an itch she'd scratched, but Aaron didn't see it that way. Aaron saw the world in absolutes, black and white, right and wrong. Rules exist for a reason, like gravity always pulling us down. His voice from this morning echoed in her head. Had it really only been this morning? It felt like a lifetime ago. The Camry pulled into her driveway. The house was dark. "This is it, miss." "Thank you." Tilly fumbled for the door handle. "5 stars, I'll give you 5 stars. "Take care of yourself, okay?" She barely heard him. She was already running up the front walk, key in hand, praying that somehow Aaron had beaten her home, that he was inside waiting to hear her out. The door swung open. Silence. "Aaron." Her voice echoed off the walls. The kitchen was empty. The living room, the family room, the master bedroom, all empty. His car wasn't in the garage. He wasn't here. She checked her phone. Still nothing. Tilly sank onto the couch in the family room, surrounded by the accumulated debris of their life together. Annie's art project on the coffee table, a glitter-covered turkey for Thanksgiving, still 2 months away. Kylie's sippy cup on the end table, forgotten from this morning. The family portrait above the fireplace, taken last Christmas. Aaron in his ridiculous reindeer sweater, Tilly laughing, the girls mid-giggle. Happy. They'd been so happy, hadn't they? The tears came again, harder this time. Tilly curled into a ball on the couch, hugging a throw pillow, Aaron's pillow, the one he always put behind his back when they watched TV together, and sobbed until her ribs ached. How had everything gone so wrong so fast? She thought about Randy, about his easy charm and his broad shoulders and the way he'd made her feel desired during those long, tedious business trips. She'd never loved him. Never even particularly liked him as a person, honestly. He was arrogant. He talked too much about his golf game. He chewed with his mouth open, but he'd wanted her. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes that had been enough. Randy wasn't the first either. There'd been Michael 3 years ago, a traveling pharmaceutical rep she'd met at a conference in San Antonio one night. One stupid, wine-fueled mistake that she'd never repeated with him. He'd sent her a few texts afterward, she'd blocked his number and moved on. 4 times. In nearly a decade of marriage, she'd strayed 4 times. Did that make her a monster? Tilly didn't think so. She still thought of herself as a good wife, a good mother. She'd never neglected Aaron, never withheld affection or love or support. Their sex life was fine, better than fine usually. She simply wandered occasionally, like going to a different restaurant when you normally ate at home, but Aaron wouldn't see it that way. Aaron would see betrayal, lies, the destruction of everything they'd promised each other. She had to make him understand. She had to. Tilly peeled herself off the couch and went to change. The emerald dress felt like evidence, a reminder of the worst night of her life. She stripped it off and left it in a heap on the bathroom floor, then pulled on her oldest, softest sweatpants and one of Aaron's t-shirts. It smelled like him, like safety, like home. Back in the family room, she wrapped herself in a blanket and waited. Her phone showed 11:47 p.m. She texted Aaron one more time, "Please come home so we can talk. I love you." Then she turned off all the lights except one small lamp, tucked her feet under her and stared at the front door. Waiting, hoping, praying, the hours crawled by like wounded animals. Midnight. 1 a.m. 2. Tilly dozed fitfully, jerking awake every time a car passed or a branch scraped against the window. Each time she checked her phone. Nothing. Where was he? A hotel? A friend's house? Did Aaron even have friends close enough to crash within the middle of the night? He was such a private person. He kept everything inside, processed everything alone, just like he was doing now. Around 4 a.m., exhaustion finally won. Tilly's eyes drifted closed, her phone clutched in her hand like a lifeline, the blanket pulled up to her chin. She dreamed of the morning, of breakfast and coffee and Annie's questions about rules and exceptions. She dreamed of Aaron's smile, the one that crinkled the corners of his eyes. She dreamed of a life that might already be over. When the pale light of dawn began to seep through the curtains, Tilly woke with a start. Her neck ached from sleeping at an odd angle. Her eyes felt like sandpaper. She checked her phone, still nothing from Aaron. But it was almost 7 a.m. The girls would be waking up at her parents' house soon, expecting their mommy and daddy to pick them up for a fun Saturday together. She couldn't fall apart. Not yet, not completely. Tilly dragged herself to the kitchen and started a pot of coffee, more out of habit than desire. The smell filled the quiet house, bitter, familiar, achingly normal. She was on her second cup, staring blankly at the wall when she heard it. The garage door opening, her heart seized. Aaron was home. The garage door rumbled to a close and Tilly's hands started shaking so badly she had to set down her coffee cup. He's here. He came back. He's going to listen. She heard his footsteps in the mudroom, heard him pause, probably noticing that the lights were on, that she was awake. Then the kitchen door swung open and there he was. Tilly's breath caught. Aaron looked, destroyed. His charcoal suit was wrinkled beyond saving. His silver tie hung loose around his neck and his white shirt was untucked, stained with something, coffee maybe or worse. His jaw was covered in dark stubble and his eyes. God, his eyes. They were red-rimmed and hollow, the eyes of a man who'd spent the night in hell. "Thank God you're home." Tilly rose from her chair, her voice trembling. "Are you okay? Can I get you anything? Coffee? Breakfast? I can make." "No," one word, flat dead. "I already ate." Aaron moved past her without making eye contact. "I just came to change, then we'll talk." He disappeared upstairs. Tilly heard the bedroom door close. Heard water running, the sink, not the shower. Heard drawers opening and closing. She stood in the middle of the kitchen, paralyzed. Get it together, do something useful. Her hands moved automatically, cracking eggs into a bowl, whisking them. She hadn't eaten since the appetizers at the gala. Neither had Aaron, probably, no matter what he said. She'd make scrambled eggs. It was something to do, something normal. The smell of butter melting in the pan triggered a memory. Sunday mornings, all 4 of them crowded around the stove, Aaron flipping pancakes while Annie demanded chocolate chips and Kylie banged her sippy cup on the high chair tray. Happy. They'd been so happy. Had they? Aaron came back downstairs in a gray sweater and jeans. He'd washed his face and combed his hair, but nothing could hide the exhaustion etched into every line of his features. He stopped in the kitchen doorway. "Tilly, sit, please." She gestured to the table. "I made eggs. I said I'm not hungry." Just sit, please, Aaron. He sat across from her, not next to her. A deliberate distance. A wall. Tilly brought 2 plates to the table anyway, along with forks and napkins. The eggs sat untouched between them, slowly cooling. For a long moment neither spoke. Then Aaron said, "Why did you do it?" His voice was controlled, careful. The voice of a man holding himself together with duct tape and willpower. Tilly's mouth went dry. She'd rehearsed this conversation 100 times in her head during the long night. Now that it was happening, every prepared speech evaporated. It meant nothing, Aaron. It was just sex, just scratching an itch, like what? She swallowed. Like, sometimes you want steak, sometimes you want salad. It doesn't mean you don't love steak. It doesn't mean... Stop. Aaron held up his hand. His knuckles were white against the table edge. Just stop. Are you seriously comparing our marriage to a menu? That's not what We promised to be exclusive, Tilly. We stood in front of our families, our friends, God, and we promised, forsaking all others. Remember that part? Or did you just tune out during the vows? His voice was rising now, the controlled facade cracking. I remember. Tilly's eyes filled with tears. Aaron, I remember everything, but those promises, I never stopped loving you. I never stopped being committed to our family. The affairs had nothing to do with you or our marriage, or... They have everything to do with our marriage. He slammed his palm on the table. The eggs jumped. Tilly flinched. In all their years together, she'd never heard him raise his voice like that. Aaron was the calm one, the reasonable one, the one who solved problems with logic instead of emotion, but there was nothing logical in his eyes right now. Only pain, raw, bleeding, devastating pain. Did you use protection? The question hit her like a slap. What? You heard me. When you were with him, with them, did you at least have the decency to protect yourself, to protect me? Tilly's face burned. Most of the time, the first time with Randy we didn't, it happened fast, but after that, yes, condoms, and the other guy years ago we used. Wait. Aaron's voice went dangerously quiet. The other guy? Oh God, she'd said too much. How many times, Tilly? With how many people? She couldn't look at him, her gaze fixed on the untouched eggs now congealing on the plate. With Randy, 3 times over the past year, and once 3 years ago with someone else, a man I met at a conference. It was just one night, I never saw him again. The silence stretched like a rubber band about to snap. 4 times. Aaron's voice was barely a whisper. 4 times you cheated on me and you never thought to tell me. I didn't think it mattered. You didn't think it mattered? No, because it didn't affect how I feel about you. Aaron, listen to me. She reached across the table, desperate to touch him, to make him understand. I have only ever loved you. Those men, Randy, the other one, they meant nothing, less than nothing. It was just physical, just bodies. My heart has always been yours. He pulled his hand away before she could reach it. Why, Randy? His voice was bitter, acidic. Do you love him? Are you going to keep seeing him? No. Tilly shook her head vehemently. God, no, I don't love Randy. I don't even particularly like Randy. He's arrogant and he talks too much and it doesn't matter. The point is, it was never about love. It was never about replacing you. We never went on dates. We never spent the night together. It was just stupid, lusty moments on business trips, nothing more. Aaron laughed. The sound was hollow, humorless, terrifying. Stupid, lusty moments. That's what our vows meant to you. Stupid, lusty moments. That's not. Who else knows? The question caught her off guard. What? Who else knows? Each word was a hammer blow. Obviously Ted knows. Obviously he told other people. How public is this humiliation, Tilly? How many of your colleagues have been laughing behind my back? Tilly felt sick. I didn't think anyone knew. We were careful. We never. You weren't careful enough. Aaron's jaw clenched. I heard Ted in the parking garage. Think Randy's gonna tap her again tonight? That's what he said, word for word. Again. So clearly someone talked. Randy had talked, had bragged. The realization hit Tilly like a punch to the stomach. Of course he had. Of course that arrogant, self-important jackass had bragged to his buddies about sleeping with his boss. I'm sorry. The words felt pathetic, inadequate. Aaron, I'm so sorry. I never meant for you to be hurt. I never wanted, but I am hurt. His voice cracked. For the first time, she saw tears gathering in his eyes. I'm hurt, Tilly. You broke us. You broke everything we had. He stood abruptly, nearly knocking over his chair. I need to think. Aaron, wait. I need to think. He grabbed his coat from the hook by the door. I can't do this right now. I can't look at you and... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Where are you going? I don't know. Somewhere, anywhere that isn't here. When will you be back? He paused at the door. His hand was on the knob. His back was to her. I don't know that either. And then he was gone. Tilly sat alone in the kitchen, surrounded by cold eggs and colder silence, and let the sobs take her. The afternoon sun was setting over Tarrytown when Tilly heard the garage door again. She'd spent the hours in a fog, cleaning the kitchen, loading the dishwasher, wiping down counters that were already clean, anything to keep her hands busy while her mind spiraled. She'd called her mother around noon, made up some excuse about needing another night for the girls. Her mom had been thrilled, more time with her grandbabies. If she suspected anything was wrong, she didn't say. Now Aaron was back, and this time Tilly was ready. She met him in the hallway. He looked calmer than this morning. Not better, God, no, but more composed. Like he'd reached some kind of decision during his hours of wandering. That terrified her more than his anger. "Can we talk?" she asked. "Really talk? In the family room?" He nodded slowly. They settled on the L-shaped sectional, the same couch where they'd watched 1,000 movies, cuddled through 1,000 evening hours, fallen asleep tangled together more times than she could count. Aaron chose a spot several feet away from her. The gap between them felt like the Grand Canyon. "I've been thinking," he said. "So have I. Let me go first." He rubbed his face with both hands. "I've been trying to understand, Tilly. I really have. I spent hours walking around the domain, sitting in a coffee shop, just trying to see this from your perspective." Hope flickered in her chest. And I can't." His voice broke on the word. "I just can't." "Aaron, let me finish." He held up his hand. "You say the affairs meant nothing. You say you never stopped loving me, and I believe you, I really do. I can see it in your eyes. You love me. I do, more than anything. But here's what I realized today." He finally looked at her, and her heart shattered at what she saw in his eyes. "To me, our marriage was everything, not just love, but trust, honesty, a shared understanding of what we meant to each other. I know. No, listen." He leaned forward, hands clasped between his knees. "When I make any decision, Tilly, any decision at all, I think about you, about our family. I don't choose a lunch spot without considering if it'll affect our dinner plans. I don't accept an invitation without checking with you first. You are a part of me, always present, in every moment." Tilly's eyes welled with tears. "I'm the same. Are you?" His voice was soft, sad. "Because when you decided to sleep with another man, not once, but 4 times, where was I? Where was the thought of me, of us, of what we promised each other?" She couldn't answer. The truth was too ugly. She hadn't thought of him, not really. She'd compartmentalized, locked those moments away in a box labeled "doesn't count," and gone about her life as if nothing had changed. "I thought we shared the same understanding of marriage," Aaron continued. "I thought we were building something sacred, something unbreakable, but it turns out we weren't. I was holding us to promises that you—" He paused, pain flickering across his face. "That you don't think matter. They do matter." Tilly slid closer to him, daring to touch his arm. "Aaron, please, I know I messed up. I know I hurt you, but what we have is so much bigger than this. Our life together, our children, our future. We can't throw all of that away over." "Over what?" His eyes met hers. "Over betrayal, over broken vows, over the fact that you've been lying to me for years." "I wasn't lying. Lies of omission are still lies, Tilly." She had no response to that. Aaron sighed. He looked exhausted, defeated. Like a man who'd been fighting a battle he knew he couldn't win. "I love you," Tilly said, her voice breaking. "I love you more than I've ever loved anyone. You have to know that. You have to." "I do know it." He reached out, almost unconsciously, and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was so familiar, so achingly normal, that it made her want to scream. "That's what makes this so hard. Then let's work on it. Let's go to counseling. Let's do whatever it takes. Can you promise me something?" She hesitated. "Anything. Can you promise me there will never be another exception?" His eyes locked onto hers. "That from now on there are no circumstances, none, under which you'd sleep with someone else, ever." The question hung between them. Tilly opened her mouth to say yes. Of course, yes. She would promise anything right now, anything to keep him, but something stopped her, a flicker of doubt. A tiny voice in the back of her mind that whispered, "Can you really promise that? Really? What if circumstances change? What if?" The hesitation lasted maybe half a second, but Aaron saw it. She watched his face crumble. Watched hope die in his eyes like a candle being snuffed out. Of course I can promise that," she said quickly. "Aaron, yes, I promise, no more. Too late." His voice was hollow, empty. "I saw it, Tilly, that moment of doubt, that split second where you couldn't just say yes. I was just surprised by the question. No." He stood up. His movements were slow, heavy, like a man underwater. You were calculating, you were thinking about exceptions, even now, even after everything. Aaron, please, I can't do this. He moved toward the stairs. We're fundamentally out of balance. We always have been, I just didn't see it until now. Tilly grabbed his arm. What are you saying? He turned to face her. Tears were streaming down his cheeks, but his voice was steady. I love you, Tilly. Part of me will always love you, but I can't be married to you anymore. I can't live the rest of my life waiting for the next betrayal. I have nothing left. No, she shook her head frantically. No, you don't mean that. We can work through this. I mean it. He gently removed her hand from his arm. I'm going to pack a bag. I'll stay somewhere else for now. We'll figure out the logistics later. What about the girls? Her voice came out as a sob. What do we tell them? Pain flashed across his face. Not now, we'll figure it out, but I can't stay here with you, not tonight, maybe not ever again. He went upstairs. Tilly heard drawers opening, a duffel bag being unzipped, the sounds of her marriage ending, one item at a time. She collapsed onto the couch, hugging her knees to her chest, her body shaking with sobs she couldn't control. When Aaron came back down, duffel bag over his shoulder, he paused in the doorway of the family room. Their eyes met. 1,000 words passed between them in that moment. A decade of memories, 2 beautiful daughters, a life they'd built together, brick by brick, now crumbling to dust. I'm sorry, Tilly whispered. I know. Aaron's voice was barely audible. I'm sorry, too. He walked out the front door, and Tilly was alone. The hardest part wasn't the silence. It wasn't the empty bed or the cold dinners or the way Tilly's coffee mug sat alone on the counter every morning instead of paired with Aaron's. The hardest part was pretending. Daddy, are you having a sleepover at work? Annie asked this question 3 days after the confrontation, when Aaron arrived at 7 a.m. to help with the morning routine. He'd been doing this every day, showing up, making lunches, tying shoelaces, being dad, before disappearing again until the next morning. Tilly watched him from the kitchen doorway, her heart aching. Something like that, sweetheart. Aaron knelt to zip Annie's jacket. Daddy's working on a really big project right now, lots of late nights. That's no fun, Annie pouted. Can you have a sleepover here instead, like old times? Aaron's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, only Tilly noticed. Maybe soon, okay? Now give me a hug, you're going to miss the bus. Annie squeezed him tight, her small arms wrapped around his neck. Over her head, Aaron's eyes met Tilly's. The pain there was unbearable. Love you, Daddy. Love you too, baby girl, more than anything. The door closed behind Annie and the house fell silent. Kylie was in her high chair, happily smashing Cheerios into oblivion. At 2 years old, she barely noticed the shift in household dynamics, small mercies. She's starting to ask questions, Tilly said quietly. I know. We can't keep this up forever. I know. Aaron grabbed his jacket from the hook. But I'm not ready to. I don't know what to tell them. Maybe we should talk to someone, a family therapist, or... I have to go. He was already halfway to the door. I'll be back tonight for bedtime. And he was gone. Tilly sank into a kitchen chair and buried her face in her hands. 3 weeks, 21 days of this excruciating routine. Aaron had rented a small apartment off Lamar Boulevard, close enough for easy access to the girls, far enough to feel like a separate life. He came every morning and every evening, playing the role of devoted father while avoiding any real conversation with Tilly. They'd become roommates who happened to share children. Polite, professional, hollow. At work, things were no better. The gossip had spread like wildfire after the gala. Tilly could feel eyes on her every time she walked into the Morrison and Associates office. Conversations stopped when she approached. Smiles were too bright, too fake. Ted avoided her completely, probably terrified she'd confront him about his parking garage commentary. Randy was gone, transferred to the Dallas office 2 days after the disaster. Officially, it was a strategic reassignment. Unofficially, everyone knew HR had gotten involved. His wife Trish had filed for divorce. Apparently, she'd overheard enough at the gala to put the pieces together. That should be us, Tilly thought bitterly, filing papers, making it official. Instead, they existed in limbo. Tilly! It was late October, nearly 6 weeks after the gala. Tilly was sitting in the family room, half watching some reality show, when Aaron's voice startled her. He was standing in the doorway. The girls were asleep upstairs. Yeah, can we talk for a minute? Her heart leaped despite everything. Of course. He sat on the opposite end of the couch, still maintaining that careful distance, and rubbed his eyes. My boss asked me today if everything's okay at home. Tilly winced. What did you say? That I'm dealing with some personal stuff. She was understanding about it, gave me some flexibility with my schedule. He paused. But I can't keep doing this, living in that apartment, coming here every day. I know, her voice cracked. I know it's hard. Have you thought any more about what we're going to do? She'd thought about nothing else. I want to try counseling, she said. Marriage counseling. A real effort to work through this. Aaron laughed humorlessly. You think talking to a stranger is going to fix this? I think we owe it to ourselves, to the girls. She moved slightly closer, not touching him, but reducing the gap. Aaron, we've barely spoken in 6 weeks. We've been so focused on logistics, who picks up Annie, who takes Kylie to daycare, that we haven't actually tried to heal anything. I don't know if healing is possible. We won't know unless we try. He was quiet for a long moment. Outside, a dog barked. A car passed. Normal sounds from a normal neighborhood, oblivious to the family fracturing inside this house. Fine, Tilly blinked. Fine. I'll go to counseling. He stood up, already putting his walls back in place. But I'm not making any promises about what comes out of it. I'm not saying this will fix us. I'm not asking you to. She stood too, resisting the urge to reach for him. I'm just asking you to try. Okay. He grabbed his jacket. Find a therapist. Let me know when. You're leaving? Yeah. He paused at the door. I can't. I'm not ready to stay here, Tilly. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The words hung unspoken in the air. I'll text you the appointment details. Okay. Aaron, he turned. Thank you for trying. His expression softened just for a moment, just enough for her to glimpse the man she'd married beneath all that armor. For the girls, he said quietly. I'm doing this for the girls. Then he was gone, and Tilly was alone again, holding onto a fragile thread of hope that might be the only thing keeping their family from completely unraveling. She found a therapist the next day. Dr. Pratishta Bandari, a marriage and family counselor with an office near downtown Austin. Good reviews online, specializing in trust issues and relationship trauma. The earliest available appointment was the following Thursday. Tilly texted Aaron the details. He responded with a single word, okay. The week crawled by. The routine continued, Aaron showing up for morning and evening parenting shifts, the two of them dancing around each other like strangers sharing a space. Annie noticed something was wrong. Of course she did. At 6 years old, she was perceptive enough to pick up on tension even when the adults tried to hide it. Mommy, why does Daddy look sad? The question came at bedtime while Tilly was tucking her in. Daddy's just tired from work, sweetie. He has a lot on his mind. Are you and Daddy mad at each other? Tilly's throat tightened. No, baby, we're not mad. Promise. How do you lie to your child's face? Tilly wondered. How do you protect her from a truth that will shatter her world? I promise everything is going to be okay. She kissed Annie's forehead. Now get some sleep. Big day tomorrow. Annie closed her eyes, apparently satisfied with the answer. Tilly left the room with tears streaming down her face. Thursday arrived. The day of their first counseling session. Tilly drove separately from Aaron. He came straight from his apartment. She came from the house. They met in the parking lot, both looking like they hadn't slept in weeks, because they hadn't, not really. Ready? Tilly asked. No. Aaron shoved his hands in his pockets. Let's go anyway. Dr. Bandari's office was warm and welcoming, soft lighting. Comfortable chairs, a box of tissues on the end table, the universal sign of emotional conversations to come. Pratishta herself was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a calm demeanor. She shook both their hands and gestured for them to sit. Tilly took one chair. Aaron took another, leaving several feet between them. So, Pratishta said, settling into her own seat. Thank you both for being here. I know how difficult it is to take this step. Would you like to start by telling me what brought you to counseling? Tilly and Aaron exchanged a glance. Neither wanted to go first. Finally, Tilly spoke. I was unfaithful, she said, her voice trembling. Aaron found out about 6 weeks ago. We've been struggling ever since. Pratishta nodded, no judgment in her expression. And Aaron, how would you describe what you're experiencing? Aaron was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was tight with controlled emotion. I discovered the infidelity in probably the most humiliating way possible, at a work event, in front of dozens of people. He paused. Since then, I've been questioning everything. Our entire relationship, whether any of it was real. It was real, Tilly interjected. Aaron, everything between us was real. Let's give each of you space to share without interruption, Pratishta said gently. We'll have plenty of time to explore this together. Aaron, please continue. He took a shaky breath. I don't know how to trust her anymore. I don't know if I ever can. But we have two daughters who need both their parents, and I'm trying to figure out if there's any path forward that doesn't destroy their lives. Tilly wiped her eyes. Hearing him articulate it so clearly, so painfully, made everything feel more real. Thank you both for your honesty, Pratishta said. Let me ask you each something. What did marriage vows mean to you when you made them? Aaron, let's start with you. Everything. The word came out immediately without hesitation. They meant everything, a promise to be faithful, to be honest, to put each other first for the rest of our lives. Pratishta turned to Tilly. And you? Tilly swallowed. The same, but I interpreted them differently, I think. To me, the vows were about emotional commitment, about choosing Aaron as my partner, my person, my family. I never stopped doing that. But physical fidelity wasn't part of that commitment? The question cut deep. I thought that was separate, that as long as my heart was faithful, the rest didn't matter. Aaron made a sound, half laugh, half sob. Do you hear yourself? I know how it sounds. Tilly's voice rose. I know it sounds terrible, but that's honestly how I felt, how I still feel if I'm being truthful. The affairs didn't mean anything. They didn't change my love for you. They were just what? Bodies, moments, nothing compared to what we have. The room fell silent. Pratishta leaned forward slightly. I'm hearing something important here. Tilly, it sounds like you feel your commitment to Aaron remained intact because emotionally you never left him. Aaron, you feel that commitment was broken because physical fidelity was, in your view, an essential part of the promise. Is that accurate? Both nodded. This is what we call a fundamental difference in values, Pratishta continued. Neither of you is wrong as a person. But as partners, this difference has created a profound rift. The question we need to explore is whether that rift can be bridged. Aaron looked at the floor. Tilly looked at Aaron. The gap between them felt infinite. I need her to understand that what she did was a betrayal, Aaron said quietly. Not just because it hurt me, but because it violated everything we promised each other. I need her to see that. Tilly, can you respond to that? Tilly took a shaky breath. I see that I hurt him, I see that clearly, but asking me to believe the affairs themselves were wrong, that's asking me to change how I see the world. In my mind, they weren't wrong, they were just foolish, meaningless. Had I never found out, she continued, her voice breaking, life would have continued exactly as it was. I regret hurting him more than anything, but the acts themselves. She trailed off, unable to finish. Aaron's face told her everything she needed to know. She doesn't think it was wrong, he said, voice hollow. She just thinks getting caught was wrong, that's why I can't move forward. Pratishta glanced between them. We have a lot of work ahead of us if you're both willing, but I want to be honest with you. This is a fundamental difference in values. It may be possible to bridge it, or it may not. Are you both prepared for that possibility? Tilly nodded, tears streaming. I'm willing to try anything. Aaron was quiet for a long moment. For the girls, he finally said. I'll try for the girls. But his eyes, when they met Tilly's, held no hope, only grief. The rain started around 3 o'clock that Thursday afternoon. Tilly watched it through the window of Dr. Bandari's office, fat droplets sliding down the glass like tears. Pathetic, she thought. Even the weather was mocking her. This was their second session. The first one a week ago had ended with both of them raw and exposed, their fundamental disagreement laid bare by a stranger in a cardigan. Today was supposed to be about finding common ground. Tilly wasn't optimistic. Aaron sat 3 feet away from her on the same taupe couch, but he might as well have been on another planet. He'd barely looked at her since they'd arrived. Just stared at his hands or the tissue box on the end table or anywhere that wasn't her face. Let's pick up where we left off, Pratishta said, her voice gentle but direct. Last week, we identified a core difference in how you each view commitment. Aaron, you see fidelity as non-negotiable. Tilly, you see emotional loyalty as the foundation with physical exclusivity as secondary. That's one way to put it, Aaron muttered. I want to dig deeper today. Pratishta leaned forward slightly. Tilly, I'd like to ask you something, and I want you to answer as honestly as you can. Not what you think Aaron wants to hear, not what you think sounds good, just the truth. Tilly's stomach clenched. Okay. Do you regret the affairs themselves? Or do you only regret that Aaron was hurt by them? The question hung in the air like smoke. Tilly opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. She glanced at Aaron. He was finally looking at her, his eyes red-rimmed and desperate, hoping, praying she'd say the right thing. But what was the right thing, the truth, or what he needed to hear? She chose truth. If Aaron had never found out, she said slowly, her voice barely above a whisper, life would have continued exactly as it was. We would still be happy. The girls would still have both their parents under one roof. Nothing would be different. Aaron made a sound, half gasp, half groan. I regret hurting him, Tilly continued, tears spilling down her cheeks. More than I've ever regretted anything in my life, seeing what this has done to him. It's destroying me, but the affairs themselves, she shook her head. They were foolish, meaningless. I regret doing them because of what they've caused, but if I'm being completely honest, I didn't think they were wrong when I did them. I still don't know if I think they were wrong, just costly. Silence, the rain drummed against the window. Somewhere in the building, a phone rang. Aaron's face had gone pale. Whatever hope had been there moments ago was gone now, replaced by something worse than anger, something that looked like resignation. She doesn't think it was wrong, he said, his voice hollow. She just thinks getting caught was wrong. Aaron, that's why I can't move forward. He stood abruptly, nearly knocking over the tissue box. Because even after everything, all the pain, all the tears, all these weeks of pretending we might be able to fix this, she still doesn't understand. She still doesn't see it. I do see it, Tilly said desperately. I see how much I've hurt you, but you don't see why it's wrong? His voice cracked. You think the problem is that I found out. You think if you'd been more careful, if Ted had kept his mouth shut, we'd still be fine. But we wouldn't be fine, Tilly. We'd be living a lie. You don't get it. Pratishta intervened gently. Aaron, would you like to sit back down? We still have. No. He grabbed his jacket from the arm of the couch. I'm sorry, Dr. Bandari. I appreciate what you're trying to do, but there's no common ground here. There's no bridge. We're standing on opposite sides of a canyon, and neither of us can fly. He walked out. The door clicked shut behind him with a soft, devastating finality. Tilly sat frozen on the couch, tears streaming, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. He left, she whispered. He actually left. Pratishta's expression was kind but somber. Tilly, I think you need to prepare yourself for the possibility that this marriage may not be salvageable, not because either of you is a bad person, but because your fundamental values are incompatible. So that's it, we just give up. Sometimes letting go is the healthiest choice for everyone involved. Pratishta handed her a tissue. Including your children. Tilly wiped her face with shaking hands, the girls, Annie and Kylie. How was she supposed to explain this to them? Mommy and Daddy are getting divorced because Mommy couldn't keep her legs closed. God, she was a monster. I need to go, she said, standing on unsteady legs. I don't know, I need to do something. Take care of yourself, Tilly, and please reach out if you need individual support. This is going to be a difficult time. Difficult? What a laughably inadequate word. The parking lot was nearly empty. Tilly spotted Aaron's car immediately, the silver Honda Civic he'd bought after she got the BMW in the preliminary asset discussion. He was sitting in the driver's seat, not moving, just sitting. She approached slowly, rain soaking through her blouse, and tapped on his window. He didn't look at her, but he rolled the window down. Aaron, go home, Tilly. Not until we talk. There's nothing left to say. There's everything left to say. Her voice came out sharper than intended. You can't just walk out of therapy and watch me. Aaron. She grabbed the edge of the window, rain streaming down her face, mixing with tears. Please just look at me one more time. Look at me and tell me it's over. He turned his head. His eyes were red, his cheeks were wet, not from the rain. He'd been crying. Her logical, controlled, absolute-believing husband had been sitting alone in his car, crying. So, what now? She asked, her voice small. He was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible over the rain. I'm sorry. 2 words, but she heard everything in them. The apology wasn't for what he'd done, it was for what he was about to do, for the decision he'd made, for the family he was about to walk away from. Aaron, please, I'll call you tomorrow about the logistics. He started the engine. Go home, Tilly, get dry, hug the girls. She stepped back from the car. He pulled away, taillights disappearing into the gray Austin drizzle, and Tilly stood alone in the parking lot, soaked to the bone, watching her marriage drive away. 2 days later, Aaron asked to come over, not for the morning routine, not for the evening bedtime shift, just to talk. After the girls were asleep, Tilly knew what was coming. She'd known since the parking lot, but knowing didn't make it easier. She spent the day in a fog, made dinner for the girls, mac and cheese from a box because she couldn't focus enough for anything more complex, helped Annie with her spelling homework, gave Kylie a bath. Read 2 bedtime stories instead of one because maybe if she stretched out the normal moments, she could delay the inevitable. But 9 o'clock came anyway, and so did Aaron. He looked tired, the kind of bone-deep exhaustion that comes from weeks of not sleeping properly, not eating properly, not living properly. His clothes hung looser than they used to. His face was gaunt. I did this to him, Tilly thought. I took the healthiest, happiest man I knew and I broke him. Thanks for letting me come over, he said, shrugging off his jacket. It's still your house, too. Not for much longer. The words landed like stones in still water, rippling outward, touching everything. They sat at the kitchen table, the same table where they'd had their first confrontation, where Aaron had asked his devastating questions, where everything had started to fall apart. Full circle. I've been thinking, Aaron said slowly, about what I need to say. I've practiced it in my head about 100 times, but now that I'm here, he laughed humorlessly. I don't know where to start. Just say it. Tilly's voice was steady, even though her hands were shaking under the table. Whatever it is, I can take it. Can you? I don't have a choice. He nodded, took a breath, let it out. I love you, Tilly. Part of me will always love you. You're the mother of my children. You're the woman I chose to spend my life with, and for a lot of years, that life was good, really good. But I can't be married to you anymore. There it was, the words she'd been dreading. Spoken out loud, they felt like a physical blow, a punch to the chest that knocked the air from her lungs. Every time I look at you, Aaron continued, his voice cracking, I see someone else's hands on you, someone else's lips. I try to push the images away, but they're always there. And I know that if I stay, it'll turn into resentment, bitterness. I'll start to hate you, and I don't want to hate you, Tilly. I don't want our girls to grow up watching their parents hate each other. Tears were streaming down both their faces now. Is there anything I can do? Tilly whispered. Anything at all. You can be honest with me, finally, completely. He met her eyes. Do you understand why I can't stay? Not because you don't want me to, but do you actually understand? She thought about it, really thought. Did she understand? Could she ever truly comprehend why a few meaningless physical encounters mattered more than a decade of love, 2 children, a shared life? No, honestly no, but she understood something else. I understand that it matters to you, she said quietly. I understand that my actions destroyed something you considered sacred, and I understand that no matter how much I love you, I can't undo that. I can't give you back what I took. Aaron closed his eyes. A tear slipped down his cheek. That's more than I expected. I'm trying, Aaron. I know it's too late, but I'm trying. They sat in silence for a moment, the kitchen clock ticking loudly in the quiet. So what happens now? Tilly finally asked. Divorce. The word sounded foreign in his mouth. I've already talked to a lawyer, not to be aggressive, just to understand the process. Texas requires a 60-day waiting period after filing. We can do it uncontested, split everything fairly. What about the girls? Joint custody, obviously. His jaw tightened with determination. I'm not walking away from my daughters. I want equal time, 50-50. Of course, Tilly nodded quickly. I would never try to keep them from you. And the house, she looked around the kitchen. The house they'd bought together 6 years ago when Annie was a baby and Tilly was pregnant with Kylie. The house with the yellow shutters and the swing set and all those memories embedded in the walls. You should stay here, Aaron said. At least until the girls are older. Stability is important for kids, and he swallowed. I can't live here anymore, too many ghosts. Where will you go? I found a condo, off Lamar, 3 bedrooms so the girls have their own space when they're with me. He paused. I've already signed the lease. Already signed. He'd been planning this, making arrangements, moving forward while she'd been clinging to hope. When do we tell them? Tilly asked, her voice breaking. The girls. This weekend, maybe. We should do it together. Make sure they know it's not their fault, that we both love them, that we're still going to be a family, just different. Different, she laughed bitterly. What a word. I know. They looked at each other across the table, 2 people who had once promised forever, now negotiating the terms of their separation. I am sorry, Tilly said. I know I've said it before. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I need you to hear it one more time. I am so sorry for what I did, for destroying us. Aaron's face crumpled. I'm sorry too. For what? For not being the kind of man who could forgive and move on, for not being stronger. Aaron, no. I've thought about it a lot. He wiped his eyes. What if I was built differently? What if I could just accept what happened and choose to move forward? Maybe we could have made it work. Maybe I'm the one failing our family. You're not failing anyone. Tilly reached across the table and took his hand. He didn't pull away. You're protecting yourself, and there's nothing wrong with that. They held hands in the quiet kitchen, two people saying goodbye to a life they'd built together. Can I ask you something? Tilly said softly. Anything. Can I have a hug one last time as your wife? Aaron hesitated. Then he stood, came around the table, and pulled her into his arms. She buried her face in his chest, breathing in the familiar smell of him, laundry detergent and coffee and something uniquely Aaron. The smell of home, the smell of safety, the smell of everything she'd thrown away. I will always love you, she whispered into his shirt. And I you. His arms tightened around her. That's what makes this so damn hard. They stood there for a long moment, holding each other in the kitchen where they'd shared 1,000 meals, 1,000 conversations, 1,000 ordinary moments that had seemed so unremarkable at the time but now felt precious beyond measure. Then Aaron stepped back. I should go. Yeah. He grabbed his jacket, paused at the door. Saturday morning, he said. For the talk with the girls, I'll bring donuts. Annie likes the chocolate ones. She does. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. See you Saturday, Tilly. See you Saturday. The door closed, and Tilly sank into a chair and cried until there was nothing left. They told the girls on a Saturday morning in November. The kitchen smelled like chocolate donuts and coffee, a deceptively cheerful backdrop for the worst conversation of Tilly's life. Annie sat at the table with powdered sugar on her chin, chattering about the school play she wanted to audition for. Kylie, almost 3 now, growing so fast, was making a tower out of donut holes. Normal, happy, oblivious. Tilly caught Aaron's eye across the table. He nodded slightly. It's time. Hey, girls! Tilly's voice came out steadier than she expected. Daddy and I need to talk to you about something important. Annie looked up, instantly alert. At 6 years old, she was too perceptive for her own good. She'd been picking up on the tension for weeks, asking questions Tilly struggled to answer. Is this about why Daddy keeps sleeping at his work thing? Aaron flinched. Kind of, sweetheart. Can you come sit with us on the couch? You too, Kylie. They moved to the family room, the same couch where Aaron had asked Tilly if she could promise no more exceptions, where her split-second hesitation had sealed their fate. Now they sat as a family one last time, the girls sandwiched between their parents. You know how Mommy and Daddy love you both very, very much, Tilly began. Uh-huh. Annie's eyes were wide, suspicious. That's never going to change. No matter what, we're always going to be your parents, and we're always going to love you more than anything in the whole world. But Daddy and I, Tilly paused, fighting back tears. We've decided that we're not going to live in the same house anymore. Annie's face crumpled. What? It means Daddy is going to have his own apartment, Aaron said gently, pulling Annie closer. And you and Kylie are going to have bedrooms there too. You'll spend some days with Mommy and some days with Daddy. But why? Annie's voice rose to a wail. Did I do something bad? Is it because I didn't clean my room? No, baby, no. Tilly gathered both girls into her arms. This has nothing to do with you, nothing at all. Sometimes grown-ups just grow apart. They want different things. It doesn't mean anyone is bad or wrong. It just means we'll be happier in different houses. I don't want you in different houses. Annie was crying now, big gulping sobs that shook her whole body. I want us all together. I want it to be normal. Kylie, picking up on her sister's distress, started crying too. Daddy, go bye-bye. Not bye-bye forever, princess. Aaron scooped Kylie up, bouncing her gently. Just bye-bye to this house. Daddy's going to have a really cool new place, and you're going to have your very own room there, with princess decorations if you want. Want Mommy room? Kylie sniffled. You'll have both, Mommy room and Daddy room. The next hour was brutal. Annie cycled through tears, anger, bargaining, and more tears. She asked if they could go to family therapy. God, where had a 6-year-old learned about family therapy, and begged them to try harder. We have tried, sweetie, Tilly said, smoothing Annie's hair. We've tried really hard. Sometimes trying isn't enough. By the end, all 4 of them were crying. They sat huddled together on the couch, a tangle of arms and tears and broken hearts. We're still a family, Aaron said firmly, his voice rough. We're just going to be a different kind of family, and different doesn't mean bad, it just means different. Annie looked up at him, her face blotchy and wet. Promise you'll still come to my school play? I promise I'll be in the front row. Promise you won't forget about us." "Never," he kissed her forehead. "I could never, ever forget about you, not for 1 second." It wasn't okay. It wouldn't be okay for a long time, but it was a start. The divorce was finalized 4 months later. Tilly got the notice in the mail on a gray March afternoon. A plain white envelope from the Travis County Courthouse containing a document that officially ended her marriage. She sat at the kitchen table, alone now, the girls at school, and read it 3 times, decree of divorce, in the matter of the marriage of Aaron James Pearson and Matilda Grace Pearson. 14 pages of legalese that boiled down to one simple fact: she was no longer anyone's wife. The tears came slowly at first, then faster, then in great heaving sobs that echoed through the empty house. She'd done this. She had done this. Not Aaron, not the universe, not bad luck. Her choices, her actions, her inability to see what she was risking until it was already gone. Her phone buzzed. A text from Aaron. "Got the papers. You okay?" She stared at the message for a long time. Was she okay? No, would she ever be okay again? She didn't know. Yeah, she typed back. "You, getting there. Hug the girls for me tonight?" "I will." She set the phone down and looked around the kitchen. Aaron's coffee mug was gone from the cabinet. His jacket no longer hung by the door. His reading glasses weren't sitting on the counter where he always left them. Little absences, tiny voids, 1,000 small reminders that her life had fundamentally changed. The months that followed blurred together. Tilly threw herself into work. Frank and Jim had been surprisingly understanding about the whole Randy situation. Disappointed, yes, but willing to move past it since she was a top performer and Randy had conveniently transferred to Dallas. The office gossip eventually died down, replaced by newer, juicier scandals. She heard through the grapevine that Randy's divorce had been ugly. Trish had gotten primary custody of their kids after a bitter court battle involving allegations of infidelity, plural. Apparently, Tilly hadn't been his only extracurricular activity. He'd left Morrison and Associates entirely, taken a job in Houston. Good riddance. At home, Tilly focused on the girls. Her weeks with them were precious. Every homework session, every bedtime story, every silly dance party in the living room felt weighted with importance. She was determined to be the best mother she could be, even if she'd failed spectacularly at being a wife. The weeks without them were harder. The house echoed when they were gone. Tilly developed a routine: work late, come home exhausted, eat whatever required zero effort, watch mindless TV until she fell asleep on the couch. The master bedroom felt too big, too empty, so she avoided it when possible. Some nights she cried. Some nights she just felt numb. Some nights she scrolled through old photos on her phone, family vacations, holiday gatherings, random Tuesday dinners, and wondered how everything had gone so wrong. Aaron, she knew, was building a new life. The girls talked about his condo, they loved the pool, his cooking experiments, mixed results, his new hobby of cycling, boring, according to Annie. He seemed to be doing okay. Better than okay, maybe. That should have made her happy. It mostly just made her sad. A year passed, then another. The raw wound of the divorce slowly scabbed over, though it never fully healed. Tilly learned to function again, to laugh, to enjoy things, to look forward to the future instead of constantly mourning the past. Her sister Margie started dropping hints about dating. "You can't stay single forever," Margie said over brunch one Sunday, the girls with Aaron for the weekend. "You're gorgeous, successful, and not getting any younger." "Gee, thanks. I'm serious, Till. Aaron's moved on." "Has he?" Tilly's stomach clenched. "I mean, I assume so. It's been 2 years. The point is, you deserve happiness too." Tilly pushed her eggs around her plate. Dating. The idea felt foreign, terrifying, like learning to walk again after breaking both legs, but Margie kept pushing and eventually Tilly caved. The first date was a disaster. A divorced dad from Annie's school, nice enough, decent looking, completely wrong for her. She spent the whole dinner comparing him to Aaron and left feeling worse than before. The second date was worse. A client's friend, charming on paper, creepy in person. She made an excuse and left before the entrees arrived. The third date never happened. She canceled at the last minute, claiming a work emergency, and spent the evening eating ice cream alone on the couch. "I'm not ready," she told Margie the next day. "I don't know if I'll ever be ready." "You will," Margie said. "When the right person comes along." Tilly doubted it, but she didn't argue. The right person came along on a Tuesday in April. Or rather, he walked into Morrison and Associates' conference room for a portfolio presentation, shook Tilly's hand, and changed everything. His name was Robert Callahan, Bob to his friends. He was the executor of a family investment office, Old Texas Money, Oil and Cattle and Real Estate, looking to diversify into corporate consulting partnerships. The deal would be worth millions. Tilly was assigned as lead account manager. Their first meeting was strictly professional. Bob was older than her, mid-40s, she guessed, with salt and pepper hair, kind eyes, and a gentle handshake. Not the type to make her heart race. Not the type to make her feel anything except mild professional respect. That changed over the following weeks. Working with Bob meant long meetings, shared lunches, after-hours strategy sessions. Tilly learned he was a widower. His wife Clara had died of cancer 4 years ago, leaving him alone in a sprawling Austin mansion with nothing but work to fill the void. "It's the hardest thing I've ever gone through," he said one evening as they reviewed contracts in the conference room. "Watching someone you love slip away, knowing there's nothing you can do to stop it. I'm sorry." Tilly meant it. That must have been devastating. It was. He met her eyes. But life goes on. That's what Clara would have wanted. There was something about the way he said it, no self-pity, no bitterness, just quiet acceptance, that made Tilly want to know more, so she asked. And he answered. Over the next few weeks, their professional relationship evolved into something more personal. Bob started asking about her life outside work, the girls, her hobbies, her weekends. She found herself sharing things she hadn't told anyone, the divorce, the affair in broad strokes, no gory details, the guilt she still carried. Bob didn't judge. "People make mistakes," he said simply. "What matters is what you do next." What a revolutionary concept. What a kind, generous, impossibly decent way to look at the world. The deal closed in June. Bob signed the paperwork, shook hands with Frank, and asked Tilly to dinner. "Not a work dinner," he clarified, a slight flush creeping up his neck. "A personal dinner if you're interested." She was terrified, elated, nauseated. "Yes," she heard herself say, "I'd like that." Their first real date was at a quiet Italian restaurant near Town Lake. Tilly spent 2 hours getting ready, cycling through 3 outfits before settling on a simple black dress that Margie deemed sophisticated but not trying too hard. She arrived 10 minutes early, then sat in her car for 15 minutes because arriving early seemed desperate. Bob was already there when she walked in, seated at a corner table with a nervous smile and a bouquet of yellow roses. "I wasn't sure if flowers were too much," he admitted as she sat down. "Clara always said I was old-fashioned. I love them." And she did. When was the last time anyone had brought her flowers? Dinner was easy, comfortable. Bob asked about the girls. He seemed genuinely interested, not just making polite conversation. Tilly asked about his late wife. He spoke of her with love, not pain. They discovered shared interests. Classic movies, terrible puns, a mutual hatred of Texas summers. By dessert, Tilly realized she was actually having fun. Not the manic, butterflies in stomach, can't think straight kind of fun she remembered from early days with Aaron. This was different, calmer, safer. Maybe that was okay. "I'd like to see you again," Bob said as he walked her to her car. "If that's something you want. I'd like that too." He kissed her cheek, soft, gentle, respectful, and watched her drive away. Tilly cried the whole way home. Not from sadness, from something she couldn't quite name. Relief, maybe, or hope, or the strange, bittersweet feeling of finally allowing herself to move forward. Over the following months, things with Bob progressed slowly. He met the girls in August over ice cream at Amy's on South Congress. Annie was skeptical at first. She developed a fierce protectiveness over her mom since the divorce, but Bob won her over with his terrible jokes and genuine interest in her school play. Kylie, now 4, simply announced, "I like him. He's funny." He met Margie in September over dinner at the house. Margie approved. "He's solid," she said afterward. "Not flashy, but solid." "That's what you need right now. Solid." Yes, that was exactly the right word. Bob was solid in a way Aaron had been solid, reliable, consistent, present. But unlike Aaron, Bob seemed to accept her completely. Her flaws, her past, her complicated history. He didn't demand she become someone else. He just wanted her as she was. "I know about the affair," he said one night as they sat on her porch watching the sunset. "You told me early on. I want you to know it doesn't change how I feel about you." "It doesn't. People make mistakes, Tilly. What matters is who you are now, and the woman I see now is kind, loving, devoted to her children, and trying her best every single day. That's the woman I'm falling for. Falling for, the words made her chest tight. I'm not sure I deserve that. Let me be the judge of what I deserve. He took her hand. Just let me love you, that's all I'm asking. She let him. 3 years after the divorce, Tilly and Bob decided to move in together, not into her old house. There were too many memories there, too many ghosts of a life that no longer existed. Instead, they bought a new place. A 4-bedroom home in a nice neighborhood, close enough to Aaron's condo for easy custody transitions, far enough to feel like a fresh start. The day they signed the paperwork, Tilly stood in the empty living room and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not happiness exactly, that came and went as happiness does, but a deep, quiet peace. The knowledge that she had survived the worst thing she'd ever done, and somehow, impossibly, found her way to something good on the other side. She thought about Aaron, wondered if he was happy wherever he was, hoped he'd found his own version of peace. She thought about the girls. Annie, now 9, thriving despite the upheaval. Kylie, 5, barely remembering a time when Mommy and Daddy lived together. She thought about herself. The woman she'd been, the woman she'd become, the woman she was still learning to be. And she thought about Bob standing beside her, holding her hand, ready to build a new life together. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah." She squeezed his hand. "I think I really am."